How do I get on the internet?
With the Internet A to Z Starter Kit, it includes everything you need. Netscape Navigator software, a $45 value, free. And a personal email account, free. Plus 336 hours internet use free.
How do I get on the internet?
Time for another word from the Cringely Glossary of Geek. This word is browser. An attractive, easy-to-use shop window, a gateway to the riches of the internet. The browser opened up the internet to everyone.
Netscape came out, and then Netscape had its IPO in August of 1995.
Yeah.
That was when I just saw so much promise of new companies that could be created that I had these 12 ideas I wanted to start, and I didn't know which one to start, and I wanted to start all 12. And that's why I started Idea Lab. So we started Idea Lab in 1996 because of that.
That is Bill Gross. He is the founder of this incubator that has helped launch 150 different companies in all sectors, from AI to carbon capture to robotics. I'm talking to him in Pasadena at Idea Lab's offices, which are tucked away in a strip of what look like old storage warehouses. It's a much different vibe from the sprawling campuses of tech companies in Silicon Valley. Bill is what you might call a Renaissance man. He is a serial entrepreneur. He actually appeared on the cover of Inc. in February of 1997. In true LA fashion, he rubs shoulders with celebrities like Steven Spielberg and Michael Douglas, both of whom have invested in Idea Lab. Bill is even a painter. His office is littered with his works, many which are replicas of Van Gogh's. He particularly likes repainting the Starry Night, and even has created a mural in the office of many painted versions of that Van Gogh masterpiece.
I remember seeing Mark Andreessen on the cover of Time magazine and just thinking this whole new area is so fruitful for new companies.
Where were you then when you first saw him on the cover of Time magazine?
I think I was at my company, Knowledge Venture, which was an educational software company that we had started. It was in Glendale. And multimedia PCs were the rage back then. I was making CD-ROM software, but then I had all these ideas for businesses that should move to this online world. And like I said, I thought there should be an incubator to make all those companies at once. And that's why we started Idea Lab.
Mark Andreessen is spawning a whole new generation of internet entrepreneurs, well past the city limits of Palo Alto. The potential was seemingly endless.
I remember when I saw Mosaic, I thought, this is like HyperCard or like hypertext or like the things that people have envisioned for a long time, but now it's available on a global scale. And I really thought it was incredible. I really thought it was just unbelievable how powerfully simple it was and how open it was. And basically, Mark Andreessen talks about this a lot, permissionless innovation, that you didn't need anybody's permission to go start innovating. You could just go, get a domain name, make something useful, make it available to people. And permissionless innovation caused this whole revolution of the internet in a way that people had not seen before. Prior revolutions required permission. Let's say you wanted to open a store, you need permits, you need to go get authorization, you need to rent, you need to get signage, you need to get a business license. If you want to take credit cards, you need to go through Visa or MasterCard, you need their permission before you can take their money. But with this internet thing, it was permissionless. You could just do anything you wanted. And that was very thrilling to me because I love the idea of invention without bottlenecks. And that was very exciting.
The events we unpacked in the first 3 episodes helped lay the groundwork for a major expansion in entrepreneurship. This also included new opportunities for brick and mortar retail to expand online. In this episode, we're going to explore this expansion and the stories of a few entrepreneurs in Pasadena. The internet was no longer just for the computer freaks. Permissionless innovation is opening up the World Wide Web to literally everyone.
This is Today with Bryant Gumbel and Katie Couric.
What is internet anyway?
Internet is that massive computer network, the one that's becoming really big now.
What do you mean? That's big. How does one? What do you write to it like mail?
No, a lot of people use it and communicate. I guess they can communicate with NBC writers and producers. Allison, can you explain what internet is?
This is Computer Freaks from Inc. I'm Christine Hani Dare Bryan. Chapter 4, Permissionless Innovation. Some entrepreneurs are born and some are made. Bill Gross was definitely born an entrepreneur.
I heard that a few other people who were early entrepreneurs sold candy, and I sold candy. When I was 11 years old, had candy for sale 3 for a quarter when candy bars were 10 cents. And at the pharmacy near where I lived, they sold for 10 cents. And at the student store at my junior high school, they sold for 10 cents. And I saw that they were 3 for a quarter. So I figured out if you buy them 3 for a quarter, that's 8 1/3 cents. I could mark them up to 9 cents and undercut the school store by a penny and sell to kids on the playground for a penny less or at the bus stop. So I would get these bags of candy that I bought 3 for a quarter and then sell them. And I made about $400 selling candy bars. And it was $400 a profit because it took a lot of candy bars to make $400 a profit. I was riding my bike around and I really had a lot of fun doing this. And I just thought this idea of arbitrage, that you could find a price that was lower and then help other people save money and then make a little bit of money in between, I thought that was very thrilling.
By high school, Bill graduated to making energy kits.
So I made a little kit that could take the sunlight, concentrate it, and make the temperature hotter, and then run a little Stirling engine to make mechanical energy. I was really, really excited about that. I read about how to do that. I made that in a metal shop at school, and I sold the plans in the back of the magazine. And why that was so exciting to me, and that really changed my life, was this idea that you could use intellectual property to make value. So I started off arbitrage, selling a candy bar for a little bit higher price when I was 12. When I'm 13 and 14, I'm taking wood and plastic and shaping it and making that more valuable, but using my hands. And now I'm using my brain to make something valuable. And that was really, really exciting to me. And that, I think, made me want to go to Caltech. I got accepted to Caltech probably because I talked about that business in the magazine.
Bill says that the people who bought these solar devices were trying to boil water or cook food from the sun. The profits from that business paid for his first year in college. At Caltech, Bill would try to continue his entrepreneurial dreams, which was doable in his first year since his classes were pass-fail. But in his sophomore year, school got tougher. He couldn't keep up with studying and his businesses, so he closed his side hustles, but just for a little while.
But then later at the end of my sophomore year, when I was back smooth on a track again, I really wanted to get a stereo system, and I couldn't afford what I wanted to get. But someone said, oh, you can sign up to the student shop and you can make your own speakers. You can take the electrical engineering courses to learn how to design them. There's acoustic engineering classes you can take to learn about optimizing them. Why don't you just do that? And I thought, that's exciting. I'm good at woodworking. Let me do that. So I made a pair of speakers for myself that sounded pretty good and certainly good per dollar, the amount of dollars I spent. And then everybody in my dorm wanted a pair.
As you can tell, Bill had a knack for finding a market. Kids love candy. He buys it at a discount and sells at a markup. He makes a solar-powered machine, sells enough to cover a year's worth of tuition. Now, everybody wants his speakers.
So I started making speakers with my friends in the student shop from midnight to 4 a.m., after classes, after homework, and making them for everybody on campus. And then soon everybody on campus wanted a pair, and I made probably 500 pairs of loudspeakers over the next year and a half, all providing them at cost to all the other students because I was using Caltech property and Caltech machines to do this, so I didn't want to charge a profit. And there's an honor system at Caltech about not taking unfair advantage of other students. But then someone suggested, well, you shouldn't sell them at students at a profit, but off campus, you could sell them to other people at a profit. So I started selling them to people all around Pasadena. Started installing stereo systems to all the wealthy people in San Marino's homes. And I built a speaker business that I called GNP, Gross National Products. And I sold speakers. I sold 5,000 pair of speakers over the next 3 years.
For the first time, Bill had taken a business idea from side hustle to a legitimate enterprise.
And it did pay my way through college. And I think Tom started helping me build them, and other people, everybody on campus contributed to this. So I started paying wages to other people on campus, and it was really, really a thriving business.
The Tom he is referring to is Tom Solaniel. Tom was also a student at Caltech.
Or attempting to be a student.
He did flunk out eventually, but he'd stick around campus regardless. Back then, he was in the market for a car, and Bill happened to be selling one.
He had a 1966 Lotus Europa in beautiful blue, and I saw it, and then he said it was for sale, and I wanted it and borrowed money from my grandmother to buy it.
It was a 1973 Lotus Europa.
1966 or 1973, the years of the car are not important. What is important is that Bill needed to sell it and Tom wanted to buy it.
I needed a van to deliver the speakers, so I had to sell the Lotus to buy a van. And it was a really big change because I had this great sports car and now I had to buy a van, a Ford Econoline van. But I needed it for the business.
But a van was not all Bill needed for his speaker business.
And he also was looking for labor to build loudspeaker cabinets in the Caltech student shop. And I was a student shop member even though I was no longer a student.
So that's how Tom came to work for Bill the first time. Let's pause on Bill's story for a bit and focus on Tom, who lives not too far from the Idea Lab offices. Last spring, me and my producer Josh drove up into the foothills of the Sierra Madre Mountains to meet Tom. Yes, those are the mountains you heard about during coverage of the Eden fire. Tom lives in a vintage 1921 cabin shaded by tall trees. It's an unsettling and prescient place because half of Tom's neighborhood had burned down during the Kinneola fire in October 1993. And he is living on the side of the street that mainly survived. Unlike Bill, Tom was never that interested in business. His real passion was space.
I flunked out of Caltech and fell into creating a rogue proposal to NASA for the camera on Mars Observer, which had no plans to have a camera. And through a political accident, it was accepted. And I was the systems engineer to build that camera. It was like a 1960s spy-grade camera, but much, much smaller and efficient, but to spy on Mars.
Tom went from Caltech dropout to speaker builder to eventually NASA engineer. You'd think this would be the start of a lengthy career following his passion for space. But unfortunately, Tom's time working with NASA was short-lived.
I would have continued in space cameras with the people, the team of engineers, young Caltech engineer that I gathered together, but we couldn't find work. And unfortunately, also the camera we built, NASA managed to lose it 6 weeks out from Mars.
This was in August 1993. Tom had hit a dead end. But then, much like Marty and Alan in episode 1 of this series, Tom discovered the World Wide Web. He still remembers vividly the first time he saw Mosaic.
Now, I saw Mosaic and thought, oh my God, this is it. But I couldn't really tell what it was, except that the idea that you could reach anybody who was also online and present textual and visual and allow them to explore it. Very different than like mailing out a videotape or something like that. You could be discovered, you could be connected to. It seemed like it had tremendous potential.
With his team of now unemployed engineers who had been working for NASA, Tom started to ask, what could they do with Mosaic?
We were puzzling over, okay, if this thing has commercial potential in the sense that small shops, well, we wanted to demonstrate things beyond what the internet was doing already. And in some way people could buy esoteric stuff. I suppose the natural thing may be natural in a little bit further west in the valley would have been porn, but we had no interest in that. And we wanted something that the press could talk about and that we could feel good about. And that would be, stand out as a sort of test case of, can you sell things on the internet? Are there things people want? Can you make a shop viable on the internet?
We're back once again to e-commerce. Tom and his team wanted to experiment with putting a brick-and-mortar retail store online. It was 1994 by this point. So you could make a website for a store, and we know that in 1994, browsers were starting to implement security protocols. Being able to buy something over the web was possible, but Tom would need a local business willing to test out his assumption.
We had these 7 engineers in this small 1,000 square foot industrial unit, and it was a few blocks from Old Town Pasadena, which had the shops and restaurants. And so I'd walk up, and the favorite place was the Goldstein's Bagel Place. I'd get my bagels and then walk by another shop on the way back, which was Perry and Monica's hot sauce shop.
It was called Hot 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 and was a tiny store, no more than a few hundred square feet of retail space. And they sold hundreds of varieties of hot sauce.
I bought different hot sauces and did a crazy thing. I put them on my bagels, but maybe that's a California thing, or maybe that's just an idiot thing because, too much habanero sauce on a bagel, it soaks in and then it stays with you and then you remember it later.
This was the esoteric type of shop that Tom and his team were looking for. Plus, he liked what they sold. So one day, in a moment that would change Tom's life and the life of Hot Hot Hot's owners, Monica and Perry, Tom made his pitch.
Hey, you want to try setting up a shop on the internet and selling?
Okay, so maybe this wasn't the dramatic moment of Hollywood movies shot on the other side of town. But Hot 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 would end up being one of the very first online stores in history. After the break, we're going to hear more about the trend that tiny hot sauce shop created for the world of online shopping.
Fingertip shopping will be one of the many homemaker's conveniences. This video console will be channeled into the store of her choice. There, a camera will scan a display of wares, which she will select. All bills and transactions will be carried out electronically. A central bank computer will debit the family's account the amount of purchases and credit the department store, for example.
We are standing in front of what was Hot Hot Hot.
Yes. So paint a picture. What would it look like back in the day?
Monica Bosterman Lopez and her husband Perry Lopez have agreed to take a stroll down memory lane and show my producer Josh and I where Hot 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 used to be in Pasadena.
This whole thing would say Hot Hot Hot, and then our Orange Sun logo.
It was a real mom and pop shop, only with hundreds of hot sauces. Running a business can sometimes feel like a comedy of errors. We hear about it all the time at Inc. Hot 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 was no different. The awning Monica is referring to, the story behind it getting installed, might as well have been a scene from a sitcom.
We hired somebody to do the awning, to have our logo put on it. And I showed him the logo. I said, this is what we're going to do. He goes, okay. Afterwards, I said, okay, remember, we're going to have Hot 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 and the Orange Sun. So that he knew everything was, said, okay, fine. He comes up, parks right here. He goes, okay, I got it. I said, just put it up. We'll come out and check it out when you're done. He goes, okay. So about a half hour, so he got it up there. He goes, okay, come on, take a look at it. So we were both here. So we came out here and got in the street and looked up. It said, Hot 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 and the Orange Sun. I said, where's the logo, man? He goes, oh, you wanted that? I said, yes. Of course we did. The sun, the orange sun.
And that was just before we were opening. So we opened with it saying Hot 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 and tape over the Orange Sun.
Right.
It's been a long time since Monica and Perry moved on from that shop. Monica now works as the marketing director for the Pasadena Educational Foundation. We met up with her at a Pasadena school building before we went by the former location of Hot Hot Hot. Perry moved on to do graphic design and construct websites for other businesses. They still dabble in entrepreneurship on the side, but this first venture started in 1994.
We had seen this magazine called Chili Pepper Magazine, and we liked to cook, we liked the Southwest, and we got excited by it. So I had got it as a gift for him. And then we ended up going to the Fiery Food Festival in Albuquerque, and it just was the thing we were thinking about at the time. It was fun.
So they opened a shop. Monica showed me an old picture of what the inside of the store looked like. Can you describe to me what I'm looking at in this picture here?
This is us in the store, and you're holding Pure Hell, and I think I'm holding Inner Beauty. And you can see our big neon sign behind us, which was so glorious. Also, the shelves were all plywood. They were deliberately done very rustic-y with like strips of orange across them. So it was meant to be like you were traveling somewhere. So it had that kind of funky kind of feel to it. This is the corner of the store, and this is before we took a picture with our giant Cholula bottle.
What was the refrigerator for?
In the store, you could taste things. So we always had samples.
Oh, okay.
We were new. We were something different. It was small, and people were finding us. And we got very lucky that LA Times food critic was a big fan. So we did hot sauce tasting events.
And where did customers come from?
All over, all over.
One of those customers, as we know, was Tom.
Tom was a regular customer of ours. He came in almost every day. And he would come in and he would, the store's very small, so it was just me in the store, 300 square feet and hot sauces. And he'd come in, usually there wouldn't be anybody else there, and he would look around. He didn't really talk to me much. And then he would buy a different hot sauce almost every day.
And soon, Tom would make his pitch. We've heard the story from Tom's perspective. Here is how Monica remembers it.
One day, I came to the store, and I somehow managed to get myself locked out. So I was standing on the street waiting for Perry to come get me, and Tom came around the corner, and we were he's like, oh, hi. And I'm like, I'm locked out. And so we were talking. We were just briefly talking. I said, Perry'd be here in a minute. And he's like, okay. He said, would you be interested in putting your store on the internet? And I said, sure. He said, do you know what the internet is? I said, well, my husband's on it at night.
Remember, this is 1994.
We met with him, and he told us that they were creating an e-commerce store, in which I don't even think there was a word e-commerce at the time, but people are going to be able to order online, and no one's done it before, and we don't know what's going to happen with it. And we said, this will be fun. And we worked out the ideas of how to organize it, because organization was really important. If you're going to shop online, because you can't just turn the pages. So making sure that as we were thinking about, from a customer perspective, how things would go through, how people would be able to find it by heat level, by area. And so they were able to do the programming based on what we were thinking, how customers would need to see it.
Just like when they started Hot 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 in the first place, Monica and Perry jumped into this new internet venture without hesitation. Hot 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 was one of the very first e-commerce stores on the web taking orders. As Tom remembers it, the site actually started accepting orders in September of 1994. Because this was such a new process, Tom, Perry, and Monica had to figure out how exactly they would work together to sell things online. Here is Tom again.
We felt really that to be a decent experience, you needed to be able to go from page to page on a website and collect bottles like I would in the shop, and then just check out with all your bottles collected. But that shopping cart, that's so obvious, but nobody had it. The technology didn't support it. There weren't cookies. So we said, well, we have to do this. And we found a way to do it that was possible back then, where in tech speak, we did a server-side database, and we rewrote all the URLs so that they would have the visitor identifier, so that we could maintain state on the server so that there could be a shopping cart. And we also knew people have to be able to pay right there on the website. You don't want them to have to phone in their credit card number. And there was some anxiety about taking credit card information online, but we said, we'll take it, we'll print it, and we'll destroy the information on our servers. And then we have a piece of paper, and then once a day or maybe twice a day, if it was exciting, we would take the stack of printed orders up to Monica and Perry, and they would ship out the hot sauce.
So yes, in the beginning, Tom and his team were literally walking over to the hot sauce shop to check on orders placed on the web. And it's also important to note that this was before the protocol war over web security we discussed last episode was resolved. How does it work then? Do I call in with my credit card number? Do I put it into the system?
No, that's what made it an e-commerce enabled site, which was new. You could go look at a catalog maybe online, but you couldn't press a button, have your credit card charged, and place an order. This is what Tom's company, which became called Presence, was able to do, which is what made it so different. So when it first went live, I have no idea how the first people found us. They must have done something to market it, because there were no search engines. There wasn't any of this. So word of mouth. So the first person places their order, they hit the button. We got an email saying that an order had been placed. Their credit card was charged, just like we could charge credit cards in the store, going through that same system. And the person called us to make sure we got the order.
But will it work?
It was like we flipped the switch on something that no one knew if it would even work or not. Will people actually order online? We didn't know if people would do it. And it sounds strange, doesn't it? It sounds really strange to think, who knew if people were going to order anything online? But we didn't.
Well, it did work. People loved it. Orders were coming in from everywhere, and word had spread around the world.
One day, I was in the store, and this tour bus pulls up, and a whole busload of Japanese tourists comes out, and they fill the store because someone had wanted it on their tour to go to the hot sauce store that was online.
And so name some of the countries you were sending hot sauce to.
I think we sent them everywhere. We sent them to Denmark and
Italy, I think there was
Italy
some.
and Mexico and
Very global.
mostly U.S., but we still shipped international if someone was crazy enough to want to pay that. Who had a sauce that they just had to have.
But as we know, technology has its limits.
There was a book that they were doing called A Day in the Life of the Internet. One of these day in the lives where they send out a bunch of photographers all over the world based on one topic. So this was the internet. So there was photos of an Inuit family using the internet and something in Australia. And there was us, and there was a lot of people from around the world. But it was all taken in one day. All the photos were taken in one day. And then from that, they actually they did an exhibit at the Smithsonian of the photos. So we can say our photo was exhibited at the Smithsonian, which is kind of crazy. And then and Al Gore was there for the opening, and they did a web camera thing.
Early webcam,
with the Inuit family and us and someone in Australia and Al Gore, and everybody got on the webcam. Everybody got on the webcams, and it didn't work.
Yeah, early simulcast.
Suddenly, Monica and Perry were the poster children for starting your own successful internet business. They appeared in an October 1995 article in Inc. under the title The Well-Merchandised Website. They were invited to speak at Harvard Business School about selling products online. But with that success, other people wanted to cash in.
There were hot sauce websites all the time cropping up. Even there was a company that went around, I think they called themselves Internet in a Box or Website in a Box, and they did how to get rich quick kind of things on the internet. And then, like, if you walk in, there was our picture and our website story.
But despite all this attention, their profits weren't huge. Inc. magazine reported that online sales generated 20% of Monica and Perry's $300,000 in annual revenue. But even if e-commerce wasn't yet bringing in huge sums of money, plenty of other shops wanted to be online, just like Monica and Perry.
We started in the summer of 94, and so we didn't get to be the very first, but we got to be better, and we got to be there before this bookseller up in Seattle.
That bookseller Tom is referring to is, of course, Amazon.
I didn't leave the house. In fact, I never saw your gift. I did it all by mouse. I didn't venture to the mall. I didn't waste a day. Your thoughtful friend who's still in bed. Thanks to Amazon.com.
It's hard to even remember how different internet shopping was back then. Monica and Perry didn't have advertisements bringing in customers. They didn't have influencers driving hot sauce fans to their site to buy Cholula hot sauce. And they didn't have search engines driving traffic. Their market was limited to, essentially, word of mouth among a relatively small number of people on the web. So how were you navigating search back then?
You were really trying to do keywords. It was keywords, 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 keywords. And there were, at some point there was ads that you could do in search engines and trying to stay ahead of the keywords. At a time, you could upload tons of keywords and you could download keyword suggestions from Yahoo. And it's an ever evolving, moving bar trying to do marketing online, as we all know, right? The Yellow Pages, the Yellow Pages were online. You could buy ads in the online Yellow Pages. If anybody doesn't know what Yellow Pages are, you used to get a phone book that had yellow pages, which were for businesses. The white pages were for people.
Do you guys remember the Yellow Pages? Maybe you sat on one visiting your grandparents when you needed to reach the dining room table at the holidays. Well, for a long time, the Yellow Pages served a much greater purpose than a booster seat. You're basically sitting on the old-fashioned form of Google. With all these new businesses popping up all over the web, there needed to be a better way to get to these storefronts beyond memorizing every URL. So search engines started popping up. You had Alta Vista.
And Yahoo had evolved from their lists and hierarchical system to also include search. But everybody at the time was treating it as a loss leader, a freebie you give to get people to come to your website. Bill had a sense that there was more to be had.
Enter Tom's old friend Bill Gross from the start of the episode. Bill, as we know, had a knack for seeing where the market and profit was, whether it was candy, speakers, or now in search engines. We just mentioned the Yellow Pages. Well, Bill saw the parallels between the Yellow Pages business model and what search engines' business model could be.
So I'm sitting here at my GNP stereo store on Colorado Boulevard in probably 1982, selling speakers, trying to get people to come into my store. And a salesperson, walks in from the Yellow Pages and says, "Would you like to have an ad in the Yellow Pages?" And I said, "Sure, that would be great." And he says, "Well, what kind of ad would you like?" "Well, I'll take a full-page ad." I thought the ads in the Yellow Pages were editorially chosen by how good your store was. That's how big your ad was. And he said, "Oh, okay, yeah, you can have a full-page ad." I said, "Is that easy?" He said, "Yeah, it's $9,600 a month." $9,600 a month? A month? My rent was $1,500 a month, and a full-page ad was $9,000 a month? And he said, "Oh, yeah, well, that will bring in a lot of customers." And I said, "Oh, I didn't know you paid for these." He said, "Of course you pay for these." That's how naive I was. He said, "Well, the full-page ad is $9,600. The half-page ad is $4,800. You can get a little ad, you can get a quarter-page ad, or you can just get a listing." And the ads in the Yellow Pages, if you looked up plumber, there'd be 5 full-page ads for plumbers, 4 pages of half-page ads, a bunch of quarter-page ads, and then just the line listings at the very end. The line listings were free, but the ads, if you want to represent your business, cost money. Well, I think he convinced me to take out a quarter-page ad for something like $2,000 a month. I had to make a $24,000 a year commitment. And he convinced me that it would bring in customers more than $2,000 a month of business. And he was so right. It brought in $50,000 a month of business. It was insane how much that ad drew.
Now, fast forward to the mid-90s.
So then the internet comes around, the browser comes around, and I look at that and say, well, what are the different kinds of businesses you could make? Well, one thing you could make is a Yellow Pages online. That would be so valuable. Think about if business can not only just have a little quarter-page ad, but they could have pictures of their establishment. They could talk more about it. They could tell you everything about their business and their background. I remember one of the inspirations for citysearch.com was I was in New York for a wedding of my cousin, and I wanted to get a haircut in Manhattan. And I looked up in the Yellow Pages, haircut, and I saw all these ads, but I had no idea what was the kind of establishment I was going to. I just wanted to see pictures of the place to get a sense. Can't do that in the Yellow Pages. You could do that online. So I thought City Search would be a great way to build a Yellow Pages online for every business to represent their business.
There was a gold mine just waiting to be tapped into with search, and Bill Gross was ready to take advantage of that opportunity. So he started citysearch.com.
City Search was the very first company which was like a Yellow Pages online. And we had to go up and down the streets in Pasadena, in Raleigh-Durham, Austin, San Antonio. We picked 20 cities. And we were walking up and down streets convincing stores and merchants that they needed a web page when people didn't even know what a web page was. And we were walking in and making the web page for them. There were no tools to make web pages like there are today. We had a team of 100 artists and developers crafting web pages for merchants, taking pictures of their store, taking pictures of their merchandise, taking pictures of them smiling, pictures of their sign, and putting that together digitally. And this is even before digital cameras.
But that led Bill to another even brighter idea, inspired by his beloved Yellow Pages. And that's what we're going to get into next time. Over the course of this episode, you've seen how entrepreneurs were ready to jump into the web with both feet. It was this community that was taking on a larger role in shaping the direction of the internet. Whether that was Mark Andreessen building a multi-billion-dollar company, or Monica and Perry putting their little hot sauce shop online. By 1996, Monica and Perry had expanded into a 1,500 square foot warehouse to keep up with all of their demand from online. But after their son was born in 1997, they downsized by selling the online part and moving their store into another gourmet shop. By the end of the year, they sold the business. They wouldn't turn the hot sauce online store into an e-commerce juggernaut like Jeff Bezos did with his Amazon bookstore. But the impact of what they did with Tom will forever be a part of internet history. As for Tom, he tried starting another business that helped make the internet faster, but that quickly fell into bankruptcy. Then he started working once again for Bill Gross on yet another business. The internet is gaining speed and a bubble is growing. We've only got 2 episodes left this season of Computer Freaks, and the stakes are only getting higher. Computer Freaks is created and hosted by myself, Christine Hani Dare-Bryan. Our executive producer and editor is Josh Christensen. Producers are Miriam Kiparuidze and Taka Zen. Production support from Blake Odom, Matt Toder, and Avery Miles. Music by James Jackman. Sound design and mixing by Nicholas Torres. Fact-checking by Mark Amundsen. Special thanks to Stephanie Mehta, Mike Hoffman, and Michelle Legro. And I dedicate Computer Freaks Season 2 to my dad, Major Joseph Hani.